Okay, let the record show the Jasper City Council meeting is underway. Regular City Council meeting for Monday, August 18th, 2014, Jasper City Hall, 465 South Main Street. And let the record show that we have all the council members present except for council members Schofield and Scott. But under the city's rules, we can continue with the meeting because we do have a quorum. Hazel, would you give us a word of prayer, please?
Our Heavenly Father, we're so thankful for your blessings today and every day, Lord. We ask for your guidance through this meeting, Lord. Guide us and direct us to make the right decisions, Lord, that are pleasing to you. Bless each and every one that is attending tonight and take us home safely, Lord. We ask in your holy name, amen.
Thank you. We have up for discussion or for the information of council members the different departmental reports. You would scan through those, and if you haven't already had a chance to do so, you have a question to the city staff about any particular operation that's going on there. I hear none. And we have the public comment when no message was tendered to me by the city secretary. We have up next consider approval for two sets of minutes, regular city council meeting July 21st, 2014, and the special called city council meeting and budget workshop July 29th, 2014.
I move to approve.
Move to approve by City Council Member Hazel Johnson. Is there a second? Second by Mr. McMillan. Any discussion on the issue? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Let the record show that the measure passed unanimously. Item number 2 on the agenda is consider request by Kevin Gee, council to consider bids received for street paving project. Mr. Gee.
I think you've got a letter there, not in your book, because I sent it late, I'm not sure.
It should be the one with the top of the email
The
cover.
email,
Yeah.
go.
Okay.
This is for the TDA 2013 grant that the city received for street improvement for Parker and Valley Drive. We received bids on Friday. You can see there a summation of the bids. We've had 2 contractors put on the work, Longview Bridge and Road out of Nacogdoches and APAC, Texas, Matthews Division here in Jasper. The work was broken into a base bid, which was Valley Drive from Bevel Loop down to Parker, and then from Parker back over to Bevel Loop. It ties into Bevel Loop on each end. And we had an additive alternate bid for finishing out Valley Drive from Parker down to the dead end. The low bids are listed there as for the base bid of $231,301, and for the additive part, $30,440. In this grant, the city was given a budget of $209,400, so the bids are over budget. There's a lot to consider on this grant, a lot of factors. The typical TDA grant is a 2-year time frame ending in November of next year, of 2015. That's when we have to have it done. We were given milestones to have the job bid out by the end of August, and we have that before you with those pricings. From discussions with area contractors, they are busy, and I think that could be contributed to some of the pricing that we're seeing. There's the options for the councilor to consider the bids as we got them, the low bidder make an award, or to reject the bids and consider rebidding at another time that may or may not provide a better pricing.
Kevin, where are these streets again?
On Bevel Loop, if you turn off on the north end of Bevel Loop, just past Hopkins, the first road on the right is Valley.
Over the overpass, past Marvin McDonald's on 190. You can go straight through that red light and take that curvy road by the truck
Gotta
stop.
see Parker Drive there.
Yeah. There's other implications if we want to put the bid off. Mr. Waxman can speak to those as far as our requirements with the state, the Department of Agriculture.
With your permission, council, just to add to what's being said, you certainly have next summer to complete this project, and if you think waiting until maybe February and rebidding when the contractors are hungry, and because they're very busy right now. If they were only doing the projects we're doing, they'd be very busy right now. So I know you know that, and I know that that's just a matter of public record. What my thinking was is, I'm not saying we could wipe away all of this excess, but we might be able to save ourselves $10,000 or $20,000 waiting till then. And there's no required match on this project. So every dollar you save is a dollar you get to keep. And it's just that simple. And since we have adequate time to do it next summer, I think if we bid it in February, we would do better, but it's your call. We can move ahead now.
Mr. Waxman, you're overall, of course, they've both seen each other's numbers now too, and that plays into it. But you know how you two guys know how these trends are. And would it be, you think it would be beneficial to wait? In other words, would it not, what I'm saying, is it gonna go up or is it gonna go down? You know, we never know what's gonna happen between now and the next meeting.
And that's the unfortunate part, besides knowing what will happen in the Middle East or
Right.
the value of oil, we can't know those things. But we know this much, for sure, in February, there are going to be a lot of contractors who are not so heavily loaded, and they are going to give us, this is a small project. You're going to be doing some bidding along about that time for some other city work. If we're in there about the same time, we might get the benefit of that increased interest. So I can't give you a for sure, but again, if we could save ourselves $10,000 or $20,000, it'd be a very good thing for the city.
We have a motion by Mr. McMillan to table. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. So we're gonna table this.
Okay, fair enough. Thank y'all.
And we really appreciate you all coming up tonight, and I hope we'll do the right thing here. The prices can go up or down, you never know. I remember when we waited on a project here a few years ago, and it ended up costing us some money. Greg, you remember?
We are, just where y'all know, we're gonna be bidding some more streets about that same time, so we're hoping for a better price at least.
Could we lump those together?
We're gonna try to get them all kind of bid at the same time.
Okay, we have up next, discuss water and sewer rates and tap fees. Mr. McMillan had asked that this be put on this. He brought this up in the budget hearing. And for those of you that may be out there, we did go back and check the record. Mr. McMillan was right, it had been discussed, and he thought it had been voted on. I knew it had been discussed, but I couldn't remember. Well, we checked the minutes, and it had been discussed, but it had never been voted on. So here we are again tonight.
What we did in the past couple of weeks since we met at the budget workshop, we went through the water and sewer tap fees, the basic water rates, customer service, water department, sewer department's all worked hard. We've been trying to get a few things together for y'all. It's, I'm gonna start with the water and sewer tap fees. The 3/4 regular residential water tap and the 4-inch regular residential sewer tap, those taps we're making for about the same price that we're charging right now. So we're doing all right on those. Well, when you get into the bigger taps, like the 1.5-inch water meter tap, the meter costs us $658, and we charge $650 for the tap. That's just the meter. That's not counting the other parts, meter box, and everything goes along with it. And the 2-inch is just the same way. We're charging $800 for the tap, and the meter costs us $881. So I think that's something we need to look at on our tap fees and stuff. You know, we could keep the ones for the residential 3/4 and the 4-inch sewer where they're at, and then the rest of them do them on what it costs us. Basically just what it costs us.
You're not calculating labor into that cost, are you?
We're not doing manpower, we're not doing equipment or anything, that's just what the meter itself, that's not counting the meter box and all the other parts that goes along with it, the tap and everything.
So the larger meters, how much have you been charging, or are we charging now for that? Or how much are we
We're talking
going in
commercial,
bulk?
residential, commercial.
This is commercial, or if you want a 2-inch water meter at your house, we charge $800. And a meter alone costs us $881.56.
How many of those a year do we have?
It depends, some years we might do 7, 8, 10, and some years we might not do 1 or 2. You know, but we're still losing money on those.
Greg, though, on this one, we talked about before, you know, was it the cost of the materials? Or, because we know what that is, but we had kind of, in the drawings, we had a overall charge that we're charging for a sewer, like a 2-inch water tap, commercial, and hoping that that'll catch all, but then if they're in a situation where we got a bore under the street or something other, that's not doing it.
We did a tap up on Bowie Street a couple years ago, and we charged the $350 for, and it cost us $1,800 to do. Count, we dug up the street, poured the concrete back, and did everything.
So where do we go here? Does the city subsidize kind of like one over here because they have to do, bore under the street, and then the next guy gets it at the low price? I mean, he gets it at the same price because his doesn't have to. Are we going to, would we start on this deal like you're talking about, would we start maybe like looking at it and giving them a price of what it's going to be to get water in there to you based on what's got to be done?
Right. And
Instead of a flat rate.
Everything above 2-inch right now is what we do. Any business coming in needs a, excuse me, a 6-inch tap or whatever, we go out there and give them a price. Okay, the water line's on the north side of the street, and you're on the south side of the street, so we got to get down the road. And we price them the material for it. We ain't been charging manpower or equipment in several years. And, but, you know, water and sewer fund, just like electrical fund, we're basically business. You know, you're getting your water per month on your bill, what's it this month, 1970. You're getting 3,000 gallons for that $19.70. That's what you're getting for your money. And so when we go do a tap and we start out $1,000 in the hole, well, for that $19, you get 3,000 gallons of water every month. And so it's hard to ever make up that when you're in a hole for the tap. And what?
Now, we don't contract any boring, we do all that ourselves.
If it's a big bore bigger than a 24-inch casing, or if it's more than 110 feet, we can do a 24-inch casing, about 110 foot. Other than that, we got a bore. We do a contract.
That'd be real rare, wouldn't it?
We did one in the past, probably 5 years, one contractor bore, and we've probably done 60 bores in the past 5 years.
So are you here tonight saying that we're going to leave our residential tap rates the same? And that what we're going to do is change the commercial rates up those?
Well, I would say right now the residential is fine. You know, it's costing us about $330 to do a water tap now for residential, and we charge $350. That's without a board, that's without cutting the street or anything else. You know, we're one of the few towns that don't charge what it costs. You know, most towns, if Mitch is building a new house here on Main Street, he comes, turns his application in, water and sewer department, just like electric, everybody else goes out and says, this is what it's going to cost you for water and sewer. And you go out and you say, the water line's on the opposite side of the street. You're going to have a bore included in it. You know, they charge the bore, they charge for the meter and its parts. You know, some places charge for the manpower and the equipment, some don't.
I know you gave an example a while ago, the $1,800 instance. Is that kind of the high end? I mean, can you see or foresee instances where that could be substantially higher than that?
Depends on how wide the street is.
Depends on the street. That was on Bowie Street and all that concrete. It was actually the house that Gail Meggs bought across the Methodist Church. And the water line's on the Methodist Church side. So we had to cut all the way across the street. And it's concrete, so you had to, that's not counting the guy's time for jackhammering all that out, doing all, that's just material cost. So, I mean,
Could you consider something, you know, like cost plus 10%?
that's what in some of the ordinances are, cost plus 10%.
Yes.
And that covers some of the labor and the equipment, because, I mean, you know, we need a new excavator, or we need a new backhoe or something, that comes out of this fund. And just like any other business, water and sewer fund, electrical fund, we have to find it somewhere in our fund to pay for that.
You can't do all these break even.
No, and you've got to run it as a company. It has got, those two are considered proprietary funds. And you have to separate them out as a governmental fund, and they are supposed to be money making. If we just break even, then none of the infrastructure is ever been set aside for any improvements. That's why we have to come back and say, okay, we need to bond, or we need to borrow money from light and power. It's because our fees are not high enough to compensate for anything to set aside.
You know, we had, Eric, me and Eric went to a meeting over in Livingston and met with the Texas Water Development Board, some other about water problems across the whole state. We're lucky. We have good water. We have good quality of water. These other towns are going through major headaches, just not far west of us. We had the guy from the Texas Water Development Board come in and do a study on just what, they do a rate study for you. And they base it on all your equipment you have, all your tanks, the amount of debt you have, where they want you to have so much in reserves for when you need to buy a backhoe. You don't have to go to the bank and buy it, borrow the money. You can just get the money out of your reserves and stuff like that. They suggested, which this is, we're not suggesting this all. You know, our rates for just water alone should be about $45 a month. And 1st October it goes to 2010 by ordinance. So, you know, that's where they're saying, but we do have, we're blessed by having some different avenues to go that a lot of cities and stuff don't have, as far as the bonding we was able to do, as far as NISCO funds and other things that we take some of this money out of. I mean, that's the tap fees alone. The state regulated, federal government regulated it by the end of 2013, all water fixtures, toilets, urinals, shower nozzles, all that had to be low flow. And they're starting to push low flow. We right now you get 3,000 gallons for your minimum water bill. We're one of the, I looked on the internet, looked everywhere, most everybody's at 2,000. A lot of cities are at 1,000, and a lot of the ones out west, you pay per 100 gallons, just because they don't have the water. And that's something we talked about back there in the workshop. You know, it's lowering that, the amount of water we give per month to 2,000, and raising our rate a little bit on the per 1,000 gallons after that. And when we got to checking this, it's like some of the bulk water sales, these trucks that come in here and buy water from us off fire hydrants. They go out and we take a water meter, a 2-inch water meter, and they fix it up where it fits on a fire hydrant, and we bill them the money for that. Well, they were paying the same as somebody that's right here in town rates, hardly nothing. I think it's about 99 cents per 100 commercial rate, which is a very low rate. You know, that's something we need to look at.
Does the city sell that? The city does that? No, we're selling water out of the fire hydrant to people with these tanker trucks?
Right over here on
Well, it's like when the sweepers come in for the state, it's when these bore contractors come in doing all this fiber optic, we sell the water to them.
You go by Milam Street by the sheriff's department any given week, and you may see a truck backed up there, that you don't recognize the name on the side of it, and they've got a fire hydrant open.
Across from the fire station on Water Street too.
Yeah.
Yeah, out at the industrial park,
Up
we use
there
that
on
out there
Main
because it's
Street.
out of the way. Up at Old Highway 8, we use that fire hydrant out there on 96. And we put a hydrant on there, it's got backflow prevention, and we go out there and we make sure their truck's got an air gap and stuff on it where they can't contaminate our water. But that costs us money to send guys out there and do that. That water meter alone costs us about $2,000 to put in fire hydrant.
They're getting a cheap
They're getting
rate.
cheap
Why
water,
don't we
so
charge them?
that's what we need to look at
That's
doing.
that's why we're.
And that's what I'm bringing to y'all's
You
attention.
know, that water is one of the, well, it is, but I mean, that's something that we have here that a lot of people in Texas do not have. And as you stated a while ago, kind of like what we talked about, there are parts west of here that are in dire straits
They're
for
gonna be
water.
trying to get our water.
And we have ample supplies of it. I think we need to be advertising, not to sell it per se, but to advertise our area as being plentiful, abundant water. You know, folks don't have it. It's kind of like life. You got to have it. And we have plenty. We're sitting on top of 2 of the largest freshwater aquifers on the continent.
That's what Dallas is coming in.
And, well, no, the
That's
thing
what
about,
they're trying to get you.
yeah, right now they're legislating. We've already lost the battle on surface water. Groundwater is next. And, you know, everybody here needs to be aware of the value of it, the fact that we have it. We need to be trying to capitalize on it as much as we can.
Well, if you think about our rate right now, basically $20 a month, you get 3,000 gallons. You go to Walmart and you buy a gallon of water, you're paying $1 for that gallon. So with our rate right now, you know, you only get 20 gallons of water, but you get 3,000 gallons right here for the amount you're speaking.
Well, let me be clear, I want to make sure everybody understands. I'm not saying I think we should charge our residents for the use of the water. I think that should be a benefit of living here, and that's one of the things that we need to, when I'm talking about capitalizing on this idea of advertising to other people around the state that are having to reprocess their wastewater back into their tap to drink, and people out in the west of 35 are losing their wells, you know, that this could be a selling point for our area,
Yeah.
you know? And it's one of the things that we have plentiful of, so I'm personally not in favor of restricting limits on it, but I would be in favor of selling it to other people that come in for it.
I'm not talking about limits, I'm just talking about lowering the monthly usage you get for is what you get.
With a flat rate.
A flat rate.
Because TCQ, they're recommended, we're one of the very few that's still at a 3,000 a gallon minimum. Most everybody that you go around to is
And
at
through all of
2,000.
us looking at this, we found all kind of things to talk, Win and Mary about it, you know, our deposit's still $40 on water. A lot of people's water bill is $70, $80 or more. And so that's one thing that we need to do is raise the deposit. And as you go to a bigger meter, you go to a 1 inch, inch and a half, 2 inch, that deposit needs to go up because that's a potential using more water. Because, you know, people move off and we're stuck with the water bill. You know.
Well, I'm gonna say this, because I gripe a lot about things, and I'm very pleased. I'm one that gripes and says a lot of bad things, so I won't say something nice. Denise and our customer service staff out there has whipped this back in on this water, these deposits and this deal. These people where they paying, you know, they got 5, 8, 10 rent houses and they're paying all the electricity and they have no deposit up and all that kind of crap. That's bull. And I don't know who ever let that go on, but it ain't gonna go on no more. And I appreciate what our staff, customer service department and Denise has done about getting that, as far as these deposits and everything, a little bit more in line over there. You know, and as mayor, when I come down here, one of the first things I want to do is be able to go to, you know, be able to say that we're beating people's utility rates anywhere else, and I think that's residentially, without a doubt, that's the case right now. We're beating people on electric. They can't go to Jasper, Newton, or nowhere around getting electric in their home cheaper than they can in Jasper, and the water is the same way, to my knowledge.
There's a couple of towns our size that the water's just a little cheaper, but they've got their minimum down to 1,000 or 2,000, which that's where they're making.
So that's not apples to apples.
Right.
So right now, if anybody, you know, the customer service department over there, y'all, I know y'all hear it all the time, I'll just go to Jasper Newton. Well, they can just go. They'll be back.
I took them a copy of my bill one month and made a copy of it and said, here, when they come in and gripe, show them my bill.
And our water, municipal, when he's talking about water, I assume you're talking about municipal water, because none of these utility districts or water supplies around here are selling water as cheap as we are.
No, Homewood,
Last night.
Tabor, Mud, all these, they're twice or more than ours. After we pulled a bunch of them off the internet, you take any one of the ones right here, they're all higher.
And as council, we realize it doesn't come easy. You know, we have to take steps. And the council has to as well.
It's like on your sewer bill, 75% of what your water bill is what you pay for sewer. So 25% of your water, if you're not being charged sewer on. And that's something I think we need to look at also, because I don't know how every 100 gallons, if 25 of it actually is going on.
Well, I think we need to look at that, but I think more importantly, we need to look at some of these contracts that we've entered into to take this sewer from other people.
It's laying on my desk when 2017 gets here, we're gonna address that one.
Yeah.
It's been laying there with a sticker on it.
Okay, so we've talked about this now for a year about these things.
Well, what we'd like to do is to put it in the ordinance form and put it before you in your September meeting. All these things that we've talked about, the rate increases, whatever, however minute they may be, and put it in an ordinance form and present it to you in your September books when we start to do the new budget and give you an opportunity to look at it on paper.
Well, I think you caught the gist from council of what we want to obtain, and we know what you all want to obtain to keep your, from having to increase your budget for water. So come up with something that you think that everybody can be acceptable with at the next meeting, and let's get it done. Is that okay?
That's what we're gonna talk to y'all about before we actually wrote an ordinance and come back and said, no.
I don't, we need, we can, just so that, could we entertain a motion for the council to move forward with that? I mean, the city's administration?
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Mr. Hobson,
Second.
second by Mrs. Johnston. Any further discussion? All say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Let the record show the measure passed unanimously. Up next, consider easement information from City Attorney Michael Stewart Radford.
The council requested that I look into some property which is located in what we call the Old Ford Addition, which is the old unrecorded subdivision that is below the rodeo arena area. Hemphill Street runs north and south, so does Gibson, Graham Street, not Gibson, but Graham Street. Leela runs east and west. There are some adjoining landowners, I believe, Mr. Jim Bill, Mr. White, Mr. Hilton, also Mr. McDonald that owns some tracts up there. It's in the works right now. I don't have anything for you today because the surveyor is out surveying the strips that the adjoining landowners would eventually like to make an opportunity to purchase. To be able to purchase it, since it's an old subdivision, first of all, the subdivision in itself was recorded in variances, feet instead of feet, variances, which is a measurement that surveyors use. It was an unrecorded subdivision, so we had LaQuinn Hildebrand go out and locate the areas that potentially were between blocks that basically were easements, utility easements that are owned by the city when the subdivision was declared. This is the land owned by the city, but never used. There is no utilities on this strip of land between the blocks. So we have to designate the strips of the land that potentially the city would release its easement.
So the city does have easements over there?
Yes, yes. It's basically, it's strips of land that are designated for easements, which are 10 variances. Strips of land that are 20 variances that are designated as a road in this old subdivision that are not being used. They're unnamed roads. And so some of the adjoining landowners of these easements would like to buy these strips of land to add to their lots.
How big are those strips of land?
Well, we're getting it surveyed off, but that's what LaQuinn is doing right now. There, 10 variances may be 30 feet, 20 variances may be 50 feet. And I'm not a mathematics on that old computer. But basically what we would do as a council is we would survey off these 3 tracts that the city owns. We would make a motion next month to declare that these tracts, these utility tracts, were leased. The city now owns them subject to no utilities, and the city then would bid them out for a bid. The bid would start at least, each tract would be at least 1/3 of what the overall cost would be to get this. If LaQuinn charges, say, $900 to survey off these 3 tracts, then the starting bid on each individual tract should be $300 to cover our costs. Once the bids are received, then we open the bid, the highest bid gets the property, and then we deed it off to the particular bid.
Does council understand what's going on here? But these, let me show you.
I've got a plat here.
I'll just show right here. This land, basically this street, there was, this is rodeo ground right up here, right here. And then you've got Graham Street that comes down here, the radio station's right here, and the church is right across the street right there. And they came, you come down Stone Street and comes across here. And one time, right here about the middle of this block, up from Leela Street, the city was gonna put a street in through there. In fact, they put entrance, what do you call those? Yeah, where it's curved, the curves turn in. At like this point right here and over there, but they never did put the street in through there. So Mr. Martin McDonald ended up buying this property here, which is Woody, and he came to me and he said, I'd like to buy that where that street is. He said, I don't want to give it to me, I'll pay for it, but I'd like to buy that strip through there so that this land is not being used. And then somebody came to me and told me that Mr. White and Tom Hilton wanted to buy this part across the street, and if they had been to the city about it, I never knew that they had. But that's the part of the property that we're talking about here.
And in order to be able to properly designate those tracts that would be subject to sale, we have to get a survey. The surveyor, the plan said basically that because it's such an old subdivision and there's not a lot of markers, he has to make a lot of calculations and find people's.
Well, they've been out there doing that.
Yeah.
'Cause I see the stakes.
Right, and so we have to get a accurate set of field notes for these 3 tracts to, 1, release the easement, number 2, put it out for bid, number 3, once the bids are received, to deed the property to the individual, and it's in the process. Unfortunately, I don't have anything for you tonight, but I feel like at our next council meeting in September, we will have all that ready to go.
You hear that, Jay?
Is any of these in
He said he'd have it go by the next meeting.
Okay, now that one portion does have utilities on it.
Okay, well
From
then
Hemphill Street east,
Over to Graham,
now it's about halfway.
okay, then I'll have to give it.
I think it's sewer line from that church on Graham Street.
the sewer line from that church on Graham Street, does it come up through there, Jay?
Yeah, it comes up and goes to the back of that church.
Okay.
Back when they built Graham, there was no utilities on that section when they built that last section of Graham.
Then whoever buys it's gonna have to buy it subject to an existing sewer easement, and.
How you gonna do that?
Well, just put it in,
Okay.
put it in the potential deed and also for the bid. But that's all I have to report as far as that. We are working on it, and like I said, we're dealing, and basically it's property that the city owns that's not used except for, say, that we probably don't have any use for it, and it's available to be sold, but we have to do it on the bid process. We gotta get surveyed, and that's what they're doing right now. Any questions?
Any question, Jay, Tom? We're gonna try to get it done.
We're working on it.
Okay. Up next, consider appointment of Bill Snelson, Tom Hertz, Alan Chestnut, Dr. Larry Brown, Kenneth Brooks, Tracy Morgan, Richard Clower, Randy Sayers, and Kai Griffin to the Jasper Economic Development Board of Directors.
I move to approve.
Okay, moved to approve by Mrs. Johnson. We have a second. Second by Mr. McMillan. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The record shows passed unanimous. You didn't even have to come up here and talk tonight, did you? Okay, number 6, status of building and fire inspections in the city. I put this on the agenda tonight, and I put it on the agenda because I think I needed to fill council a little bit better into what's going on. I think the council knows, but I just want to make sure they do. And I want to say some other things too here tonight. We'll be very short with this. We appointed Mr. Collier, fire marshal. He's taken both the building inspector's job and the fire marshal's office job as well. We put those jobs together here a few months ago. Or how long now? A year? October will be a year. And me and Mr. Collier went round and around on some things because I've been very upset, and I've even fussed at him about getting some things done. And there's been other questions been raised by other city council members. I'm here tonight as mayor of this city I spent a little time on this, and I'm shocked and I'm appalled I don't believe that the city of Jasper's ever had a fire marshal. I believe that the records are there, or I should say the lack of records are there. That would be the word that I'm going to use. That the lack of records and research and background is there to indicate that possibly the city of Jasper has never had a fire marshal. That's a strong statement to say. But whenever the fire marshal is out here, and I'm finding things in news stories that were addressed here in Jasper 11 years ago, and those issues are still problems in school buildings and other public buildings around here. I'm talking about stuff that's been going on. When we find there's tags out there, and we find evidence that there's been problems in buildings, and undoubtedly those problems have been there and they've been inspected for 8 and 10 years and 6 years and 4 years, and that is appalling. That somebody in this city of Jasper has been paying somebody to be fire marshal. And you can't, for council's knowledge, you can't go down there and find the records of the fire marshal's office only go back a few years. And then from that point on, there are no records. It's if somebody took them off or never did anything or what. But bottom line is, we've got a fire marshal now that is doing his job. And me as mayor, I've addressed to him that, and I would think this, I don't want to be alone in this, I would think that this council should say that first ought to come our school buildings. If we don't care about our school buildings, what in the hell do we care about in this town? If you don't care about your kids, and you're paying people to go out here and ride around and bullcock everything, I don't know what you want to call it, but it's not doing your job is what it's not doing. And it ain't been done, and we've jeopardized our children, and if we jeopardize our children, what kind of people are we? Now just what kind of people are we? And then we turn around and we jeopardize our old folks out here in these nursing homes. And then it ought to come right on down to church buildings and other buildings where people congregate or assemble. And you might have 100 people in there. And then it ought to, in my mind, it ought to come right down to then the less traveled or the less occupied buildings. So that's where there's been some questions raised. The city manager has been seeking someone basically possibly to come in and to assist from another city, hopefully a fire marshal's office in another city where we've got already trained people to come in. I just want council to know that I think we're in a dangerous situation here. Well, we've got a shopping center that has been here for, one of them, how many years, Mr. Coggy?
I don't know how long they've been here. I know they're.
And undoubtedly, they've never been inspected.
Well, I've got one that's about 80% back compliant.
Yeah, but I mean, why after all this time?
Now that I don't know.
We've got fire alarms on sprinkler systems around here that have never been hooked up.
Well, they hooked up, but they're not compliant. They're not tagged, or they're yellow tagged, they're not like
So,
schools.
anyway, I would like to get, I guess what I'd like to get tonight is this council's blessing in this, that the council maybe to make, or just to be addressed or whatever, that fire safety within the city of Jasper is important, and we're gonna have it. We're gonna have it if we gotta get rid of everybody up here at City Hall. If we gotta get rid of everybody in the city, we gotta clean house from beginning to end. We're gonna have fire safety within this city. I mean, this is ridiculous. And I just want council to know what's going on, that it's sad that undoubtedly we've been doing something here all these years. We've had people, and people say, well, now, are you just listening to other people tell you? No, there's certain people been getting me in the car and go show me things, and show me tags. And in some of these things, I go back and find where there was a fire there, it was addressed, 10, 12 years ago, but it's still that way. What's the deal here? So, I don't know that we need any council action, I just want council to know what's going on. Any questions? Thank you. Up next, status and policy concerning inspection of fire plugs within the city. I asked this to be put on there. I guess, Greg, that's going to be you. What are we doing on fire plugs?
Our crews go around our fire hydrants, they weed them, they inspect them visually, check them out. They don't flow them, on a regular basis. We do all of our dead-end mains, we have to by.
Why do we not flow them on?
For one, it stirs at the water where you have a lot of.
I understand it. Now, let me get why I put this on here. I and a policeman here a few years ago went to a house fire. He went as a policeman, I went as a newsman. And we broke 2 wrenches trying to get the plugs off of the fire plug while the house was burning down. It's very obvious to me that that plug had never been maintained or hadn't been maintained in a long time. Should these plugs not be maintained at least once a year?
Yeah, we do look at them and check them. We don't open them on a regular basis.
So how do you know they work?
It's sort of like 22 years I spent in the fire department. I can't remember about 3 that didn't ever work. And they all work, they come on, we just couldn't shut them off.
Well, I've seen them not work as a newsman, and I've also seen the fire truck, the pumper be full of dirt and gravel come out of them plugs. Is that not true?
Yes, sir, I've seen that myself too.
To where they can't fight a fire. So, I don't know what the policy is on that, but I think if the council's not interested in it, we ain't interested in it. But I think, as mayor, I'm saying it ought to be done. You know what, I put this on the agenda a week ago, because I was concerned about it. I've mentioned it a time or two, and I think it's fell by deaf ears, because all I hear is excuses and stuff. And I remember a time in Jasper, I remember times years ago when you go up around here, you saw plugs running all the time all over town, because they was greasing the caps, they was painting the plugs, they was opening the plugs, they was flushing them. And it ain't happening no more.
We paint the fire hydrants every 5 years. We paint them between 2010 and 2020.
I ain't worried about them being painted as much as I am the damn things operating.
We grease them at the same time.
Now, like last night, I went to a fire out here, and I'm gonna show this council. Look at that down there, Matt Miller, and then let's come back this way. One of the firemen asked me, he said, "Lout, can you find us a plug?" "We can't find a plug." I said, "Man, I'll go find you a plug," which I do for firemen all the time. And I went down the end of one street, then I went down the end of the other street, and went down the end of the other street, and I come back around, I said, "Man, I can't find one except about a block away." And then all of a sudden I walked around there and looked, and there was one right by the fire truck that nobody could see, because it has not been maintained.
We'll take care of whatever you need to take care of. If y'all want to start flushing, we'll start flushing on an annual basis.
And I understand this stuff about people, you know, they don't want it because, but then I know too, there's a way to open plugs, you know, just gradually open it, let it flow, maybe overnight or whatever, and you go back out there and slowly, and then when you get all that stuff out of these lines.
Not the way they do it. No, sir, you get open, wide open, let it run until the water changes colors and goes back to clear.
Why can't we do that?
We can. But when y'all start getting complaints like y'all did last time we did it, and we got shut down by the 2 administrations ago on the city council, we stopped doing it.
Well, is there anybody here on this council that has a problem with them making sure that these hydrants are working and if the water's cleared and ready to go? You got a problem with that, council?
Do you have to let them run for any certain period of time?
When you open them up and the water changes color, because we put phosphate in our water, which suspends some of the iron and manganese, and it collects on the pipes, and when you open it up, water in these pipes go a certain direction all the time. You change the flow of it, just like after a fire. We go after 2 or 3 days after the fire, it takes us to clear the water back up in the neighborhoods. And so when we do it, it's going to break that loose. When you do it at the dead end mains like we do it on a monthly basis, it gets all that out through the very end of the line. But when you stir it up in the middle, you're going to get the complaints, you're going to get the water like Bridge City and someone's getting right now.
Is there any scheduled regular maintenance on the fire hydrants? And do we know where they all are? Do we have a map?
We got them GPSed, and we got a map of them. And the crews go out and they try to weed eat and visually inspect them on a regular basis. You know, some of this, you know, as it grows up.
And Greg, I'm not fussing with you.
I understand.
I mean, I understand, I'm not stupid up here.
I was fired for 22 years. I want them to work. I know how to work.
But to me, you know, I said a long time ago, and I still, today, I ain't changed at City Hall. I believe that when somebody calls, you know, people don't want the city to do anything but leave them alone. But whenever they call a policeman, they not only want a policeman to come now, but they want a competent policeman to come. They want somebody that knows what he's doing and is ready to go to work and do what's got to be. And when they call a fireman, they want a fireman to come, and they want him to come now. And they want him to not only have to come now, but to put some water on the fire and put it out. And then we get on down to when they throw a light switch, they want the lights to come on. When they turn the water, they want water to come on. When they flush the commode, they want it to go somewhere else. They don't care where it goes. And they want their garbage picked up. And I just think that fire and police, to me, has always been, it should be at the top of the list when people call. And if we got plugs that not working, I think we're setting ourselves up for disaster.
The NFPA and AWWA standards state they have to be inspected on a basis. They don't tell you how often they have to be inspected. You know, so
What do you think they should be inspected?
if we did it, try to do it on an annual basis, and that's what we try to do during our weed eating part of it. We don't flow them in because you can open that hydrant 10 times in a row and it do fine, but the 12th, 11th time you start to open it, could break. I mean, some of these hydrants downtown was put in the 20s.
Do you grease those caps whenever you do those?
They grease them on the year that they paint them, because usually if that cap's not taken on off, that grease is not going anywhere. You know.
How many fire hydrants do we have, do you know?
About 400.
How many?
Almost
400.
400.
I mean, I can see where it'd be a full-time job.
Well, you can turn around and do, whether they did it quarterly or whatever, but you're averaging 8 a week,
It is, you know,
but, or quarterly, or whatever you break them out by areas.
I mean, we've went around the past couple of years and we've been getting everything on GIS, turning everything on aerial pictures. And where it's make it easy for the crews to locate and keep up everything. So we've got just about all the valves, all the manholes, and all the fire hydrants GPS'd.
But, you know, we'd have it on GPS and satellite, and the Russians can have a picture of it and everything, but if somebody can't find it 8 feet away, it ain't worth nothing.
I agree with you.
Does the fire department?
When the house is on fire.
The fire department information,
Does the fire department have the?
they have them out, you know, and we're trying to get all this, make it simple where they will have it on digital form.
Now, what happened about our little blue deals out by the fire hydrants? I don't see them anymore.
That was something, when I was in the fire department, and George Bush was working, and Gary Dary's working for TxDOT, we got with TxDOT, they fire us the blue things. We did it on Monday night fire meetings. We went out and put all those out.
Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Technically, if we had a paid fire department, the fire department would be responsible for doing the flushing on it.
And the
Just
maintenance,
effective,
most-
maintenance
Beaumont,
on it, just
Lufkin,
from
all
their
the
fact,
towns
they would know
got
where they're all
They're the one
at.
that takes care of the fire hydrant. That way they know how they are and where they are. You know, it's like, we've got 3 brand new guys in the water department. Now, this is not an excuse, Mike, I'm just saying. In the past 2 years, we've been putting in water meters. We put in almost 2,500 water meters with our crews and hadn't had to hire a contractor to do it. So in their time between water leaks, they've been putting in new water meters, trying to get the revenue up for more accurate water. And then on other times, when there's just one guy here and one guy there, we send them out to do the weed eating and checking the fire hydrant and all that. And I believe in the flushing program. That's why, you know, we flush all the dead end mains. We have to do that monthly. So 2 guys go out once a month and they flush all the dead end mains. We have about 60 dead end mains has to be flushed once a month.
Don't get me wrong, I know that everything we do, it comes at a price. Somebody's got to do it. And then you got everything else you got to do too. But somewhere over here, we ought to have the priorities, you know?
And if, like I say, we can start flushing them on a regular basis, 8 or 10 a month. It will cause y'all some phone calls and some other things.
But if you flush them at the end of the line, then you're not gonna get the sediment, the rust and stuff in the houses like you will if you start flushing them in the section.
Everything works its way from the water well. When you do a proper flushing program, you start at the water well and you work your way out. That's why if you do 8 or 10 a month, it's hard to do it that way. You gotta take a couple of days, you gotta do a whole line out to the very end of it to get all of it out. And that's why it messes everything up for a few days royally, because if you go out and do 8 of them, it just pushes on down. You've got the people on down the line at 10, 12, 14, 15, it's caught all the settlement down at their house.
I can testify, whenever they do one over in our neighborhood, I go buy all new guts, put it in my commode tank and
And
forget.
that's the complaints we was getting, because when you do it, and right now, if you just flush at the end of the dead end mains, it works everything to the line. It just takes a little longer process, and it gets there, and it don't cause it to go in the houses and cause other problems, and it don't make that tea-looking water that you get, like Bridge City and some of these cities is dealing with, because they made some sort of error.
Any other discussion? We have up next on the agenda, a time in which I'm going to, as a member of the board of the SRMPA, Sam Raven Municipal Power Agency, bring the council up to date on very briefly on what's going on with some litigation there. For those of you that are here tonight, we appreciate everyone for coming. I don't foresee that there will be any action. In fact, we do not even have an action item on the agenda for that. So, well, yes, we do have action from executive session, but I don't anticipate any action from that. So I guess what I'm telling you, if you want to hang around, fine, but if you don't, well, there's probably not going to be anything very exciting here at City Council after that. And we're going to hold that meeting very, very shortly. I was going to waive the executive session and just tell you in open, without getting into litigation, but Councilman Millen had some questions, and that's why we put the executive session on the agenda so that we can do that. So we will be going into executive session at this time to discuss pending litigation that is involving the Sam Rayburn Municipal Power Agency and potentially the city of Jasper. And I will read that, what do I do with it here? I need to get organized on these meetings. It is Texas, Chapter 551, Texas Government Code, Section 551.071. Let the record show that we're at 5 minutes until the hour of 7 o'clock. Thank you all.
Mike, you want me back up? Want me back up? Want me to go back up?
That would